trap music. Yeah, nowadays the keyboards that I work with are a little bit more like this.
Okay, initial D.
Absolutely.
When the sun goes down, tell me we will live to tell the mystery of midnight and its spell. When the sun goes down.
So fast it happened. This is what our subscribers were waiting for so long time.
All right.
Today we'll talk with Eurobeat producer from the United States, Travis Stebbins.
Hello.
And first of all, thank you very much. Finally, we have found some free time, and now we can ask you some questions, and also try to get to know you some better.
Absolutely.
Once again, I apologize for the delays. Also sorry for my English level, because as I have written to you, I'm from Russia, and sorry for my pronunciation and some grammar mistakes and other things too. I'll try to do my best.
You're doing excellent. I know some native speakers that don't do as well as you're doing, so you're good.
Thank you. I have a list of questions. So, how's your health, by the way? You have written to me that you had some problems.
Yeah, I'm actually just coming off of very small case of bronchitis. A couple of years ago, I had a very strong case of it that required an inhaler and much stronger things. But this time, just some antibiotics. And as you can hear, I'm actually not coughing nearly as much. See, all I have to do is say it, though, and it'll happen. But it's I can talk for long enough to where I'm basically 100%, or not 100%, but I'm almost there.
Okay.
Much better.
The first question is, how did you start making music? Was it Eurobeat, and maybe something inspired you?
Okay, so in this case, I actually come from a family of musicians. In this case, my dad plays bass, my mom plays piano, my brother plays guitar, my sister plays drums, and I kind of fell to keys for the most part. I actually took up keys just for the time being, but I found that I was really drawn to synthesized sounds. Like, I knew what a piano sounded like, I knew what a bass sounded like, I knew what those instruments sounded like, but synthesizers didn't sound like anything in the real world. That's what I liked. They sounded like something completely different, something completely separate. So I started playing with sort of a hand-me-down keyboard a little bit more and more. The very first music I made was not Eurobeat, but it was definitely inclined to it. It was very fast, very intricate, with lots of things going on. It was a while into making music before I discovered what Eurobeat was, or even the fact that Eurobeat was separate from other styles of electronic music in the first place.
You can see a keyboard maybe in on the background.
I can see the top of it. I can see the top of a guitar as well. Oh, there it is. Yeah, nowadays the keyboards that I work with are a little bit more like this. Itty bitty, but they get the job done.
I didn't write music, and I have never tried to write it, but a lot of years ago I went to a music school, and so I gave up. The second question, we have a lot of initial D fans among our subscribers, and they asked this question: what car do you have?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm actually on my second car ever, and I don't know if either of the cars that I've had are particularly drift friendly. My very first was a Nissan Sentra,
Wow.
which is okay. It was a manual, which I liked, so I actually ended up learning how to drive on a manual. But I currently live in the Bay Area.
I can't hear you. There's
So Nissan Sentra, and then recently that started to have problems. Actually, was in a crash with it, a rainy day, going along a very harsh hill. I'm not very, needless to say, I'm not very good at drifting or anything like that myself, even though the car sort of tried. So now I have a BMW 325i, which is an automatic, which I don't much care for. I like the control that having a manual used to give me, being able to stick it into gear and really rev and go crazy like that. I miss stick shift. I never thought I'd say that, but I really miss it.
And what about the laws in the USA, for example, about race and drift and other things?
Well, I tend to follow the law. I mean, I might go a little bit faster than necessary sometimes, but it's actually very difficult to actually drift legally. You might have to find just some back roads or something in the in the hills or the mountains to even just get away with it. If they find you, they would actually give you a very, very expensive. I haven't drifted before, and it would be. I'd get in a lot of trouble because I don't know how, and I'd probably end up crashing before they could pull me over.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Russia,
I'll leave the drifting to the experts. I just make the soundtrack.
in Russia, for example, in many cities, you can do whatever you want, and the corruption allows it.
Goodness, that well, that explains some YouTube videos I've seen. Very sorry to say. I'm sure Russia's a lovely country, but the driving record precedes it.
Yes, we have this. A lot of people knows you as Cam Blast from the Initial D soundtrack. So why did you stop your partnership with the AVIX label, or what happened? What's the reason that your songs are not included in the Super Eurobeat albums? In my opinion, you have already done this music for a long time, and you have just appeared only in 3 albums.
That's right. Let's see, volume 201, 209, and I think 217. So that's what, one every 8 or 9 albums. In this case, it was not that I stopped my partnership with them. By the way, I'm actually not directly connected to AVIX, nor am I signed to AVIX. So in theory, I could say whatever I want. I mean, those would have consequences, but ultimately, I was actually working with Delta, and they actually produced the works under the Ken Blast alias. When the Sun Goes Down was by Lawrence Newfield, and then The Top and New Horizon were produced by Maurice Capaldi. I think it was Maurice. But yeah, AVIX only published those works. In this case, it was just because they would actually ask me for a track. It's like, hey, can you make a new one? And I'd be like, okay, here you go. And they stopped asking. And frankly, not that I disliked being on Super Eurobeat, but I liked the freedom that I had from working independently a lot more. In fact, I was able to do a lot more promotion. I was able to do a lot more experimentation. I was able to do a lot more that AVIX doesn't seem to want to let their labels do. Boy, I'm keeping myself from saying some things that could get me in trouble, but I'll say this. I question if the direction that AVIX has taken Eurobeat is as much as it could be. Put another way, I haven't seen a lot of Eurobeat releases getting, millions of views on YouTube or, a lot of shows, except for in the last year or two where they've had, Maurizio Di Giorgio and Domino and Lolita going out to perform at Japan with very little fanfare, very little announcement on a YouTube channel that has blocked comments. I'm getting too deep. So basically, I just like the creative control and the freedom I have in working independently. And frankly, it's almost a little bit more successful for me. This isn't to say that there can't be success on Super Eurobeat or with Avex. Just I prefer the kind that I've had, just working on my own as Odyssey, as DNA Team, doing Toho remixes, even doing some of the MLP stuff, and just mostly originals.
And for example, the Shugano label, does it have any freedom or something like that?
Sugano?
Yeah.
Sugano is actually a sort of a one-person band. It's run by Sugano, and he has plenty of freedom. From what I understand, unless he's working directly with Avex on Super Eurobeat, the stuff that he's doing on his own which is fantastic, by the way. That is completely up to him. But Sugano is entirely free to do as he pleases, because he's because he's publishing his own stuff. He's putting it out on YouTube and doing and then Bandcamp and all that kind of thing, which is completely within his power. Yeah, he is completely free to do as he sees fit. Gosh, Sugano. Sugano is one of those people that I haven't spoken to in a long time, and I feel bad about that because I'd love to see how he's doing and connect with him, but I haven't really taken the time to do that. He's been very busy.
What kind of music did you listen to in your childhood?
Oh boy, this is the good part of growing up with musical parents. My dad introduced me to Kraftwerk, Devo, to Oingo Boingo, a little bit. My mom introduced me to Mannheim Steamroller and Earth, Wind & Fire and Stevie Wonder. And it was just this fantastic blend of all these different styles that I really appreciated. I ended up starting to listen to Danny Elfman music, like movie scores, for a while because I was familiar with his work with Oingo Boingo. Actually, me and a few of my friends in like middle school and high school got very into his work. And then outside of his stuff that he did with his band, I started going into his movie scores, and it was like, wow, this is really dark and lush, and rich and beautiful. And I was actually sort of on a track to do more music like that until I discovered Eurobeat. So hopefully some of that Elfman influence has made its way into my music. Just little bits.
And when did you discover Eurobeat music?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I don't remember the year, but I remember my family and we were walking along this the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, which is sort of this amusement park on the sea, and there was a strange dance arcade game, and I believe, looking back, it was a third mix Korean bootleg of DDR. And the music was very fun and bouncy and lively, but it also had these intricate chord changes and all these little moments of musicality that I didn't know was really possible or even encouraged in dance music. It's like, wait a minute, what? This is kind of right up my alley. So I found out about this weird song called Boom Boom Dollar and other things like that. And other songs that weren't Eurobeat but were very similar. So I'm like, okay, what is this? And looking into that and doing some research, finding the stuff that wasn't. So, I got into it through the Dance Mania, the Toshiba EMI published stuff. I'm like, oh, some of these labels are also on Super Eurobeat. Okay, what's that? And how is this different? So kind of found it through DDR, and I actually got pretty good at the game too, but once I started losing interest in that and getting back into making my own music, I started going into, well, what am I trying to, how can I be like that? How can I sound like that? And what does that take? What would I need to do to recreate that? And that led to more research and more, they use really interesting plugins, and like I have general MIDI, like I can make a GeoCities cover, but not quite the real thing. But yeah, I discovered Eurobeat around about the same time I discovered.
I can tell you about my experience. It was 2009 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And on the image boards, there was a meme about LOL. That name was LOL Internet, and Ronald McDonald was driving crazy and on the background there was running in the night, and so yes. Well, and then I watched the Initial D movie, and so I discovered the Eurobeat music.
There's a lot of memes that have made their way into the world with Eurobeat at their core, like the whole deja vu thing, Speedy Cat, LOL Internet, as you mentioned. It's been interesting to see the way that it kind of wheedles in to little pockets of the internet where people are like, if they just cracked that open and saw, they'd be introduced to this big old world of unironic Eurobeat, you know.
But I think that some deja vu memes, it's not good. This is mainstream, and
I get you. It doesn't treat the subject matter very well. It's sort of like, haha, this is a silly song. It's like, get it because it's drifting. I don't know. I think on some level, yeah, it does kind of make it mainstream. On the other hand, I think the fact that there's any kind of publicity is a start. Then we can start to give it good publicity as opposed to, oh, it's all very cheesy, or even questioning if cheesy is even that bad. That was part of what drew me in the first place. It was cheesy but charming.
Can you name your favorite Eurobeat song? It shouldn't be yours.
Oh, no. Gosh, no. My stuff is not my own favorite, believe me. And that answer changes depending on the day. One of the ones that's most consistent is Black UFO by Lupan. I cannot believe...
Great song, yes.
Yeah, I cannot believe that it's a Sci-Fam song, because Sci-Fam tends to do these riffs that are very like... But with Black UFO, it's practically like they're being high energy attacked, because they're like... It's everywhere, and I can follow it to some extent, but it's like, wow, where's all this energy coming from? These are the same guys that did like Black Cat, and it just goes nuts. There's not a single part of it that isn't just this huge burst of speed. The vocals are on point, the brass is on point, the mixing is on point. I mean, Sci-Fam has always had stellar mixing, but that's one of the ones that I turn to. This is like, this is one of the ultimate. The other one is Pamela by Matt Land. Like that brass riff to me is the pinnacle of Eurobeat success. Like that right there, that sound, those chords, that flying line is what I aspire to. Like those two songs right there, they're kind of fighting for number one, number two, and it's kind of like, yeah, those two are definitely among my favorites. And it's hard for me to pick one because it's like picking kids, and like picking your favorite kid, which people totally do, and they don't want to admit it. But it's still kind of hard because it does change from day to day and based on circumstance.
Which of your songs were you making for a long time?
Which one took me the longest? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Is it like which song that I've done has taken the longest time to finish?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
That's a good question. Actually, I would say Gone. By Mortimer featuring Rena, only because I had this sketch.
This is your favorite song that was made by yourself.
Right. Well, not necessarily my favorite. It's one of them. It's one of the ones that has the most meaning for me, but it's the one that took me the longest to make. Because 1 year prior to when I finished it, I had the sketch and I didn't know where to go with it. And then half a year later, to maybe, I don't know, 3/4, I ended up kind of finishing it and then sending that in for a fundraising album for an event that I was going to perform at. But then I kind of took that and finished it. So that means that the song took about a year. And I can't think of too many other songs that have taken longer than that. So right now, Gone holds the record. I had named it like A Beat C Powerful or something because I wanted it to sound like A Beat C. It didn't work, but I liked the result.
What about your vocal skills? Are you self-taught?
Oh, on and off. I have some piano lessons, and I can read a treble clef without any sharps or flats. But for the most part, I'm self-taught. Music theory and which chords sound interesting and whatnot. I am self-taught. I I've taken a couple of courses in like sound design and some production classes in college, just on the side. Very few of them taught me more than I already knew. There were some things that I picked up and learned from those courses, and that's very good. But for the most part, the bulk of what I take to each track and what I work with is largely self-taught.
Mhm.
Decreasingly so, actually. I'm doing I'll do courses and classes and tutorials and whatnot. I'm actually part of Academy.fm, which Cymatics makes available. They do like serum patches and sample banks, mostly for like EDM, but they also teach stuff about just basic production and getting things to sound clean and clear. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the be-all end-all for any other musician, but that's working for me. I always try to learn and pick up whatever I might have missed.
Can you play any musical instruments? Well, now.
Yes, to a degree. I can play keys to some extent, and I can keep time on a drum. I'm not exactly, I'm not some legend. I'm not particularly great at drumming, but I can hold my own. And I actually have a guitar that I'll be learning in the next year. It's an acoustic for now, but I'd like to get an electric, so I don't have to use plugins in my own songs anymore. That'd be really nice.
You said about a guitar, and in future, will we hear some guitar riffs in your tracks?
Yes, I mean, I try to include I try to include guitar and other fun things like that in my tracks already, but in the future, as I learn to play it, of course, I'll be playing those in myself. In fact, it'll be nice to have that, because then I can have a more sturdy sort of foundation, just to fill out the mix in general. So there will be more guitar in general and more guitar riffs specifically.
Final lap, I'm on top of the world, and I will never rest for a second again. One more time, I have beaten them out. The scent of gasoline announces the end. They all said I'd best give it.
Could you tell us more about your aliases? Why did you choose aliases such as Mortimer, Odyssey, Blast, and so on?
Okay, that's a good question. So Odyssey, spelled normally now, was originally spelled Odyssey, like Odyssey, sort of the misspelling, sort of the strong bad, was it the Homestar Runner's strong bad approach to naming a metal band, because I like the idea of an unusual journey. But over time, people were like, "Did you mean the Odyssey?" and spelling it correctly. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we'll just go with regular Odyssey. Mortimer came actually from a phone prank that I used to like to pull whenever like a telemarketer was calling or a sales call was coming in that I didn't want to take on my personal phone. So people would answer, a common thing is to answer with a fake business. So in my case, it was, they would, "Mortimer's Mortuary, how can I help?" And I like the idea of Mortimer being this, Fastway has Dusty, Cherry has Leslie Parrish, and I like the idea of Mortimer as a darker, I hesitate to say edgier alias, but darker, more melancholy alias, because, it's dark. But it's not devoid of happiness. Mickey Mouse was originally going to be named Mortimer until Walt's wife said no. Name him something less dark. But yeah, that's the story behind Mortimer. DNA Team is a 2x pun. It's based on the Factory Team, which is Sci-Fam, and then Team Shanghai Alice, which is the one-man Toho team comprised of Zun. So I put those together, and that's a DNA Team. Ken Blast was actually not entirely my choice. When we were going to release When the Sun Goes Down, that was actually not going to be an Avex release. That was going to be an Akira Music release, which was Newfield's side label. And he didn't want to make it under Odyssey. So he was like, all right, pick a name that's a little more appropriate. And there was actually a Eurobeat name generator on Eurobeat Prime. And I kind of listed a few of those that I liked, came up with a few of my own. And I'm like, here's a few ideas. And then Laurent Newfield gets back to me. It's like, all right, we have the song When the Sun Goes Down by Ken Blast. I'm like, oh, dear goodness, this sounds like a porn star. But that's how the name stuck, and people seem to like it. So that's how Ken Blast came to be. Let's see, other aliases. Trying to think of a few. I know I have more than that. T. Stebbins is just an abbreviation of my name. I could always go for the one that might upset a few people. Eurobeat Brony came from a time when that term meant I'm a fan of the show and more of a bro in the sense of like a dude bro or like a frat and fraternity bro. It's like, hey man, did you catch that? No, that's a weird show. That's cool. Anyway, so did you catch the game last night? Yeah, right? Kind of thing. And that was actually kind of a stealth name that I was going under because I didn't know if this was going to be a good thing or a bad thing, if people were going to like jump on my case for doing it. But it started becoming very successful. So then it's like, okay, this is a name I can go under. To this date, I think the alias Eurobeat Brony has more plays on YouTube than Ken Blast does. But yeah, that's the origin of that one. And then that term became something entirely different. It's like, no. But the name stuck. So that's that. Other names that I've got. Oh, Ray Dynamo. That was chosen by, was I working with that one? Was that Pound Infinity or that was the Paradise Last? I think they had the name ready, and I accepted that and I went with it. But yeah, I think they had the name. I like that name, Ray Dynamo. Cool. But that's the story of that one. Are there any others that I've missed? I feel like I might be missing one.
I think there are no more.
Okay. Cool.
Well, some people associate Eurobeat with street racing, and what do you think about it?
About strip racing or the association with it?
Yeah, about association.
I think it's fine. I think people want fast music to be associated with fast activities, and that makes sense. People have tied like drum and bass to it as well, or certain kinds of techno, and I do mean like actual techno, not like just electronic music. And that makes sense. I think that limits it somewhat because Eurobeat is good for so many other things, but I don't suppose I mind it. I think as long as Eurobeat's being connected to something, and people go, oh man, I like this. Is this Darude Sandstorm? No, it's actually this. I think as long as people are open to it and asking questions and enjoying it, I think that's okay as long as the content it's being tied to is ethical, or at least arguably ethical and okay.
According to information from open sources, you are the only one singer from the United States, and how do you feel about it?
Actually, to my knowledge, that's not entirely true. On Super Eurobeat, if we count Fausto Gio, or the Prophet, he's actually, I think he's from New York. As well, I think there's at least one other vocalist that has at least briefly lived in the United States. On Super Eurobeat, it is nice to have the reputation of being sort of the American, because that's kind of nice. I mean, it's nice to have something that's unique, but it's not entirely unique. I think I might be the first one that's contributed vocals and lyrics and the composition that wasn't already working with a label at the time. In terms of Eurobeat in general, even then, the label, no, not Fantasy. Which label was if you were here by Jennifer? That label actually had a lot of vocalists from Los Angeles. Like those were native English speakers and producers. It just ended up folding later on. But there is something nice to the reputation of an American producing Eurobeat, an Italian genre for Japanese audiences. Kind of shows how universal it all is. And technically, if we're going with When the Sun Goes Down, it's an American-composed, Canadian lyric written, produced by a Frenchman in Italy for Japanese audiences. Yeah, it's fun, but I'm certainly not the only one.
Put on
Do you like other musical genres?
Oh, absolutely. This is the part where I might tick off some purists, but I really like a lot of modern EDM. I really like future bass, but not like Marshmello or Flume. They're okay, but I much prefer acts like Sean Wasabi or Wave Racer. In fact, just yesterday I put out an EP of more bass-oriented genres that has a lot of Eurobeat into it, but there's future bass, there's even dubstep with some Eurobeat in it. Yeah, I like a lot of different genres. For me, genre is less important specifically than musicality. That said, I do like future bass. I do like dubstep. I like drum and bass, I guess. I've always enjoyed soul for quite some time. And I've also got a soft spot for classical. And technically, if we have to say new age, if that's what I need to do to get Mannheim Steamroller in there, then sure, I like new age. But yeah, I like to think that I like a pretty wide array of genres.
I know that you live in California, yes?
Mhm.
And well, it's West Coast, and a lot of people make hip hop music there. And have you ever think about making some hip hop music?
Probably not. I think I made one beat for someone that I lived with in dorms at my university for a little while, and that was fun. But I'm just too pasty white to pull that off, man. I've appropriated enough culture. If I do anything close to hip hop, it'd probably be like trap or even future bass. But I just, if it's not quantized 1, 2, 3, 4, then I have trouble with it. I have only as much rhythm as a dance machine will allow me, or as a drum machine will allow me. Plus hip hop, that's more my brother's thing. He could pull that off, but he could produce if he wanted to. That's just not something that he enjoys doing. So maybe not hip hop, but maybe like trap music. I suppose that's as close as I might get.
Mhm.
I mean, as long as the state isn't burning, which I think it still is. How many fires in the last year? 2 or 3? Don't move to California. It's lovely, but you'll also catch fire. Which would sound good in a Eurobeat context, but no. Just go with the metaphor, not the actual thing.
Do you have any songs that were never published?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, finished songs, no. Every musician that I know has several unfinished songs. And there are a number of songs that I could go back to and polish up and publish, but if it was a finished song, I would have at least put it out. I know there's a couple of exclusives on like SoundCloud. There's a really bad attempt at a remix of Lights by what's her name? Goodness, Ellie Goulding. But no, if I finished a track, 9 times out of 10, I published it or had it published.
But in the future, can we see an album which name is Travis Stebbins Unfinished, for example?
I've thought of doing that, but that would mean going back and finishing all those tracks, and I just don't have that kind of work ethic. So not likely, but not impossible. There are a couple of tracks that would be worth diving back into my history and polishing up. I know there's one that would just need lyrics and vocals, but as I said, that one's unfinished. I would only put out an album like that if I was either searching for new inspiration, desperate for cash, or really proud of that old work on its own.
Mhm.
So maybe not yet, but not an impossibility.
So it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, just not likely.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that are possible and not likely. Take that as you will.
Before I start, do you know anything about Russian car industry?
Nothing that hasn't shown up on old episodes of Top Gear. I'm sorry.
There's no problem. And our subscriber wrote this question. Can you write a song about Lada Samara racing through the Russian tundra?
I'll see. I've got a few songs on my plate that I want to finish and get through. There's a couple people that I want to collab with. That isn't a bad idea. There is already a Eurobeat song about car crashes, though. So we'll have to be careful about that. I think Daniel's got the market covered in terms of songs about car crashes. Frontal Impact, Spirit of the Night, all that good stuff. I try to leave some of that stuff to the experts. Excuse me.
I know that you subscribed the Anthony Mac Bazooka's channel, right?
Yeah.
And it was a month ago, he released the song named Mercy Twingo. And have you heard it?
If I have, it's been a little while since I've listened to it. It's not fresh in my mind. I'll put it that way.
Uh-huh.
He's doing really good stuff, though. He's been putting out some of his recent releases have been really impressive. His collab with BVG in particular was quite good.
Yes, that song was very great and amazing.
How many times have I doubted before? Those times I said I won't love anymore. I don't recall, I never want those memories.
Does it make sense to wait for more Ponybeat?
Oh boy, not really. I've never had a hard stance on not making Ponybeat, or if I am or if I'm not. Here's the deal. I still need to go back, and I've said this so many times, and I feel bad to say it now. Like, I would need to go back to season 7 and rewatch the show and be so inspired by what I saw that I remixed it. I did see the movie, and it was fun, but other people have already remixed it very well, and I just didn't feel that inclined, to remix it. So I would say don't wait for it anymore. If it does happen, great. Then, new song out of the blue. It will be a surprise. But in the foreseeable future, I don't see myself working on more Pony. Yeah, it's if anyone is familiar with the artist Feed Me, he used to work under the alias Spore. Spore was quintessentially dead until one day Feed Me was like, screw it, I'm bringing Spore back. New album. That's kind of the status with Eurobeat Brony right now. If I get inspired, or if I don't know, remake an old song or something, then I might bring that alias back. But for now, I'm trying things out in the non-pony related stuff, or even non-fandom really. I love working with Toho stuff, but I've got a lot more original ideas.
How do you feel about any fandoms like Initial D, Densha D, Toho, or MLP?
Oh boy. Well, any group of people, it's great that they like things, and I like fandoms in general. They are like any group of people. People are prone to excess. Enjoy what you like what you're watching. Don't be a douche about it, and don't shove it down people's throats. That's my deal. Like, I've liked stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I like, and even stuff that I believe in, where it's like, yeah, that. There's something about it that's really silly or a little overboard, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of part of it. But I don't think people should be ashamed of liking something either, just because there's a fan or two that makes a group of people look bad, or even that does bad things in the name of it. I think as long as what you're enjoying is generally ethical, have fun with it, enjoy, recognize where other people might be weirded out, and don't force it on people, and that's fine. I've participated in enough of them to know how these things go. The Initial D fandom is pretty friendly. The MLP fandom, oh boy, that became very different. It was interesting to watch that one actually grow. I think now it's settled down a bit to where it's a bit more reasonable. But I was actually the first musician to remix something from the show, so I kind of accidentally started a good chunk of that. But I don't know. I met some of the people that have some of my very best friends in the world, people that have changed my life and changed my music, and a lot of people in that fandom are starting to make Eurobeat now, which I think is really cool. Shoot, one of my best friends, Andromulus, or Alex S, started in that fandom, and then he moved out, and now he's signed to Firepower, which is really cool. .6 label. So, props on him. I'm getting a little long-winded. Like what you're gonna like, enjoy it, recognize the biases, don't force it down people.
I think that's a really good question. That's it. In most Eurobeat songs, the lyrics are on the background. Composers usually make focus on emotions, beats, speed, and so on, but they don't pay attention on the semantic side of the lyrics. In your songs, there is powerful music and also meaning of the lyrics. Excuse me. Your song Entropy falls into the soul exactly because of the text. By the way, this very topical question, really. And I immediately recall the Avex's style, like fire desire and so on.
Yeah. So do I understand the question right about like the difference between standard Eurobeat writing and some of the stuff that I've done, or is that sort of what they're addressing?
It was about the meaning in the lyrics. Is it should it be on the background or?
I think I get the question now, and to some extent, it depends on what you're writing. You can write, it depends on the writer and the composer and what they want to express with the song, and that's perfectly valid. If someone wants to do Burning Love, Car Baby, Fire Desire, Tonight, Tokyo Drift, great. That is a wonderful and great Eurobeat song to write. If you want to write something where the lyrics are meaningful, that's also perfectly good, because Eurobeat is an expression. Music is an expression. And even if some of that expression involves, get up and dance, it's still within one's control what they do with it. For instance, no, let me scale it back. On the one hand, I think the fact that many of the writers and composers in mainstream Eurobeat, for them, English is a second language. And this is not to say that, they're bad at it or anything like that, but they speak primarily Italian, and that's normal, that's natural. And in Japan, English is also a bit of a second language, which is also good and great and fine. And if you think about some of the songs that were big in Eurobeat's formative years, the lyrics weren't really that deep. Even stuff like by Rick Astley, it's about love and never gonna give you up, and if they never get you down, kind of thing. And that's fine. Like, camera got weird. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's also value in using the language to write something compelling in its own way. Entropy kind of follows suit with even some of the mainstream stuff. Like I was talking about Daniel writing about car crashes. That's not a common Eurobeat thing. You're supposed to have, that they talk about the successful part of all that. Can't wait to breathe the gasoline, want to breathe the engine, lights around me. I can pilot as the hero. Yay! Not, I am truly about to die. Frontal impact. So the idea of a Eurobeat song having meaning, not even necessarily a deep one, but like something a little bit more than just woo, dance, and burning love, car, baby, fire. I felt like that was something that Eurobeat could stand to grow with. One of the things that I felt like would get it out of its sense of, it's a racing genre, it's a meme genre, yay! It's like, no. I'm about to tell you about some real stuff right now. Like, I'm about to tell you what's going on in life, and it's not all good and happy, burning love, car, baby, etc. And again, this isn't to say that the way that Super Eurobeat labels and artists have done it isn't legitimate, but I think it grants the genre some legitimacy and a way for people to relate to it. And I've also seen the mainstream labels do it, and it works out pretty well. So I can't really say if it should or shouldn't be. I think if you want it to, go for it. If you don't want it to, that's fine. Make good music first. Worry about lyrics later. Unless you have such a good lyrical idea that you can't let it go.
But you can mix that two styles. I mean, you can also make great music and make great text, and the other one.
Yeah, I mean, High Energy Attack is fantastic for this. Their lyrics are bat nuts insane. Like, they're about livestock and getting drunk and the American Wild West and Russia, and they're great. My first full-on Eurobeat album that I ever listened to was Eurobeat Orchestra of Bazookistan, and I love it. It's fantastic. The words
Really
mean
good.
nothing. You are not going to grow as a human being listening to this thing if you just listen to the lyrics. But it's still valuable, and the music itself is quite good. On the same token, I think, being able to listen to Daniel, or the writer behind Daniel, getting through, frankly, a loss of a loved one, that's like, oh, wow, I can connect to this a little more. And then, like, there's still the fun part, but it's like, oh, wow, okay, my heart goes out to you, man. Yeah, you can definitely blend those styles, and you can even have stuff that, ooh, that'd be interesting. Like a song where the lyrics are really deep, but the music is trying to convey something else, and there's actually that clash. I need to write that down. I'll do it later.
And you said about the mainstream Eurobeat, and what did you mean?
Mostly Super Eurobeat. There aren't any other mainstream compilations anymore. Avex bought out enough space to where they couldn't even compete with themselves anymore. And it used to be Eurobeat Flash, Euromock, and all these other different compilations from Avex and competitors where lyrics could be deeper. Even that label that had all the LA vocalists and whatnot, those lyrics are at least comprehensible with some kind of plot. If you were here with me, you could feel the way I do now. I really like that. But that's what I mean by mainstream is mostly, Super Eurobeat for the most part, and occasionally some of the other stuff that fell, other Avex published releases back when they still did that.
That were our subscribers' questions, and I think we should take a pause, just 1 minute. I will ask my friends and check some stuff. I will ask some questions, not from our subscribers, from me and my friends.
Okay.
So, what do you think about piracy? In my opinion, there's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you lose money because your tracks are freely available. And on the other hand, for example, in the CIS, in Russia, the Ukraine, Georgia, Estonia, and other countries from the ex-USSR, salaries in these countries are very low. For example, in my country, I live in Georgia. If I want to buy a Super Eurobeat disc, I should spend about 1/3 of my salary. And fortunately, that I don't have a full-time job, and usually I earn money using the internet's opportunities. So, what do you think about piracy?
You were right to call it a double-edged sword. And I'll say this much. I'll start with this. If it is readily available to get legally, one should. To put it in perspective, the first album I ever put out independently, the very next day, someone on forums that I visited called themselves Peter Pan and started distributing that album for free, saying, I'm stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. I was a student back then. This wasn't even an Avex released thing. I made it available in several formats across several countries. So they started posting it to other forums where they usually posted, full Super Eurobeat volumes. They were banned on site with such comments as, get out of here, how dare you, and like, they've done everything they should to make this worth buying, and you've gone ahead and pirated it, get the hell out. My take is this. On the one hand, yes, if sales were possible and someone didn't do it, then that's wrong. On the other hand, Avex doesn't make Super Eurobeat readily available, and they have their publishing. Trying to show some restraint because I have some very strong feelings about not just piracy, but making piracy less of a thing. Screw it, I'm going in. Avex has screwed themselves in how they publish. The fact that they're not publishing internationally is a disaster, and the fact that they keep their Eurobeat labels on the compilation that started Avex in the first place, publishing internationally, or from actually giving them any kind of advertising support, things record labels are supposed to do, is a travesty. So of course people can't actually go and buy it. When they try to actually acquire it and put it up somewhere, it gets shut down. With half the effort Avex dedicates to shutting down Eurobeat in other countries, they could make it available in other countries. If only there was a model of a record label that makes it internationally available with different publishers and different subgenres and things like that on a numeric basis. Monster Cat exists. They could. Avex shoots himself in the foot. So when someone outside of the country that can't get Super Eurobeat pirates it, they make it available for people who can buy it legally but decide not to. So by not publishing internationally, they make piracy a bigger thing. And I don't have any numbers or stats on how many Japanese fans are downloading from international fans who put it up somewhere, but this could just be less of an issue if they just published in more places, made it available more places. Why were they so slow to let labels even put things up on MySpace when it was dying? I need to cool down. Avex has invited piracy onto themselves, and I have my own professional opinions of Avex, and if any of them wanted to talk to me about these feelings, please, let's have that conversation. But until then, they've shot themselves in the foot and made piracy one of the only ways to get Eurobeat. So they've done this themselves. When I have to tell people, my own friends, my own family, that they can't get my music because it's published in Japan and it's illegal to get here, it's a little sad. I need to. It is water, despite the chocolate.
Okay. The second, how do you see the Eurobeat's future? Will it have new performers, labels, producers, and the fans, or this is the end?
Okay, that's a really good question, and this is going to take me a while. Eurobeat's longevity will depend on how often it is made, how often people buy it, how well it is marketed and produced and published, like how often it gets out there and how often people are aware that it's out there. If Avex is the sole proprietor of Eurobeat as a genre, which it is not, thank goodness, but if it continues to be sort of the be-all end-all, the big boy, if it's continuing the way that it is now, I see the genre suffering severe damage. Because right now, it is not being marketed, it is not being released often enough, it is not being promoted, they're not making a proper business out of it. And I hate to say that it's going to be a business, but let's be blunt. The music business is a business. Right now, an Avex-based Eurobeat is a damaged one indeed. But the problem is Avex controls enough Eurobeat to where if they shut down, where are people going to get it? Who's going to promote it? Who's going to be, where are those labels going to go? I would say a severe restructure in the way that Eurobeat labels release, promote, produce would be necessary for it to evolve. I've listened to some of the recent volumes of Super Eurobeat, or at least the teasers. The vocalists sound tired. There's not even really reverb on the vocalists anymore. The synth brass sounds like a detuned saw wave and not like a saw brass, which may be an effort to modernize it, but that's not how. Even SCP, who I think is the closest to the modern Eurobeat sound in a positive way, they're using dubstep presets from 2012. Eurobeat, to evolve and grow and become a prosperous sound, if it is not going to sort of shatter and sprinkle into existing genres today like future bass or dubstep or something like that, it must exist as enough of its own entity and be on the same tip of people's minds and tongues as anything else. It needs to be on Beatport. There needs to be people doing remixes of Eurobeat songs and Eurobeat remixes of regular songs. Going Quantum, the A&R guy at Monster Cat, was asking what people are doing in the Eurobeat world in 2017. We need to have an answer. We need to be able to say, here's what's happening. Here's where it's going that's interesting and fun, and people don't sound tired and people aren't being forced to try to sound like a detuned saw wave and the same logic loops. Yes, I've heard labels using logic loops. I work in logic. I'm very passionate about this, so I'll try to scale it back. Eurobeat needs to live in less of a bubble, frankly. It needs to be published in more places. More people need to make it. More people need to market it. AVIX shouldn't be the only one holding it, or if they are, they need to do an infinitely better job of letting the labels explore, delve into other genres, or bring elements of that back in. It's possible for Eurobeat to grow. I don't think it's the end of Eurobeat as a genre. To say that you can end Eurobeat would be to say you ended jazz, you ended classical, you ended folk. You can't kill a genre unless nobody is making it. And as long as I draw a breath and can still click notes into Logic, I'm going to be making Eurobeat, or at least something. I don't know if I really answered that question so much as probably introduced even more. But the way that I see it, unless something severe changes in the Eurobeat world, I think it will continue to stagnate. I don't think it'll die, but I think it'll stagnate.
You said about the tired vocalist, and I remember I have remembered about the last Dave Rogers release on the Super Eurobeat album. This song was Break Into the Music or something like that.
Yeah.
And in fact, the vocal was really awful.
Really?
Yes.
I haven't heard it yet, but that's...
He was very tired, and I don't know. I really can't hear it to the end. And the situation is bad. It's really bad, I think. But this is the reality. And,
I think there could still be inspiration. I have spoken to enough people that work on Super Eurobeat. I'm not going to divulge too many details, but there is inspiration. People still want to make it. There is still love for that. They still want to make it. They're not tired because they hate Eurobeat. They're tired because of what they're forced to do. Dave Rogers, in addition to having been hospitalized in the last couple of years, I don't think he doesn't want to make Eurobeat anymore, or at least I hope he doesn't want to stop making Eurobeat. I think he's just tired of having to do it a certain way, of having it have to sound like, you know, a couple of detuned saw waves and drum loops. I think there's more there if they were just given the creative freedom to do it. Hell, if they were doing like Twitch and Place, Yoko Ono Scream, artsy fartsy level stuff, Eurobeat, I'd rather hear that. I'd rather hear people like bend and break it instead of just being like, please God, end me now kind of thing. It's not impossible. They're just being stuck through a sausage tube, man. I really need a better metaphor than that.
What can you tell about your plans? Will your songs appear in any films, games, or animes?
Not much is set in stone. I will say that I'll be appearing on a few more albums. I'm in talks with a few other record labels about stuff. I actually had a release with the California Japan sort of fusion label, Attack the Music, which was they just put out a standard Eurobeat song. So there will be likely stuff there, and they put stuff in games, so that could be a thing. I plan on doing a lot more Eurobeat, a lot more other genres, a lot more things kind of mesh that blend together. So whether it'll end up in specific shows or games or anime, I can't really tell you. But I'll go wherever I'm wanted, wherever they want me. In fact, there's even a few shows that I have lined up in 2018 that are not conventions. I played quite a number of conventions, anime conventions, MLP conventions, a couple times to Japan. But this time it won't be just conventions. These will actually be true blue club shows that are Eurobeat. So I'm hoping to do more of that. So the 2018 is actually going to be a really exciting year. I'm looking forward to it.
And I think that now in 2017 and in 2018, 2018. The Eurobeat has the second wave, or there are a lot of internet memes, and the popularity of Eurobeat of Initial D, it grows, and maybe some other indie games which can include some Eurobeat music, for example. But I have never seen such games with Eurobeat, but I think it will be cool. Well,
A Drift Stage, actually, the composer for Drift Stage went out of his way to include a Eurobeat song, like to make something new, and he actually performed it at Mag West last year, or this year. It's still 2017, and people loved it. That's the song that, like, it's him. That's the guy. He's doing Eurobeat live. Game Grumps is mentioning they were doing, was it the Redneck games, and there were some card tricking, but it's like, and then Ego Raptor was like, what is it, like there's gonna be a card tricking around, there's gonna be Eurobeat playing or something? It's like, they know. I think people are aware of it. If we can capitalize on it, if we can get something on it, like now is the time. The iron is hot. Strike it. I mean, you should be used to striking things on fire. That's what Eurobeat does. That's what it is.
what kind of relationship do you have with the other Eurobeat performers?
I'm a bit of a loner, but I don't speak too much to the Super Eurobeat guys, not because I don't want to, but because they're busy. They're doing their own thing. I do from time to time chat with them. It's all good terms. We can talk about, the future of things and how's Avex. Let me tell you a thing. Things that I can't disclose. But in terms of the independent side, that's where I know a few more people. I haven't spoken to Sugano in a while. I really should. There are a few sort of budding Eurobeat producers that I'm talking to, and they're doing their thing, and it sounds really good. I have a few of them over in my Discord server. It's fantastic. Excuse me. Eurobeat performers, though. I think once they, like, whenever I talk to someone new or we haven't met yet, and once I introduce that, hey, I was actually Ken Blast, we've actually been on the same album together, there tends to be this sort of, oh, you're that guy. Okay, cool. Hi. So generally good terms. So yeah, I don't really get out much, but it's always been at least pleasant.
Have you ever thought about going to Eastern Europe or Russia, or even give a performance there?
If there's a gig, they want me, and the plane ticket isn't too expensive, sure. I'll fly wherever. I'll fly to, I don't know, maybe not Antarctica, but, if there's a gig, if there's the thing where what I provide is wanted, let's hash something out.
Have you ever thought about collaborating with the other Eurobeat performers?
Yes, I have thought about that, and I'm not against it at all. I would just need something good for them to work with me on. I've worked with other producers, like not necessarily in the Eurobeat world, but like Eurobeat performers. I thought about it, and there's a few that I would love to work with. I mean, gosh, who wouldn't want to work with Maurizio De Jorio, Nico, or Dave Rogers, or anyone like that? Of course. And I would personally die if I could have the honor of working with DJ Command. But it's a matter of actually getting the execution, of actually, like, what do you say? Hi, I like your stuff. Can you sing on this song I made? It's written in crayon. Like, how would I even go about that? Would the fact that I've, would any kind of name dropping, yeah, I'm Ken Blast, I was on that one thing, we're totally the same, right? I don't want to seem like an arrogant, pompous prick by, like, going, hey, I made this thing, you're totally, like, you're there enough to be on it. I also don't want to go, like, groveling, like, please grace my song. It's like, it's hard for me to feel like we're equal, or how to approach it in a way that respects them, but would also, like, work. Or if they wanted me to work with something on them, like, I'm available, but I don't know how I would breach that.
If I have understand you correctly, the problem is in the respect?
I would want to show them that I respect them, because coming to them with something that I made either seems like I'm ignoring them, or like a very naive child wanting an artist to sign their crayon drawing, or like I'm going, hey man, I'm so great, you should be on this thing because, like, cool stuff. I want to show that I respect. Yeah, it is kind of showing that I respect them on their level, not not that I'm arrogant about what I have or that I'm like, oh, I'm not worthy kind of thing. How would I present it? The way that shows are.
But you make really good stuff, and why not, for example, DJ Command? What's the problem? I can't understand.
In his case, he's one of the people that convinced me that I could do Eurobeat and not just be on Super Eurobeat. Like, have to be on, on a Eurobeat label to make it. And he was also the guy that showed that you could be independent and still sound just as good. So for me, for any other like EDM producer, it would be like asking to collab with, or asking to collab with Hardwell, or I don't know, who's popular with the kids these days. But it'd be like walking up to one of them and being like, "Hey, we should collab." How else could they respond? But like, who the hell are you? Like, who are you? Why are you bugging me when I have like 90 different things to work on? I would need to provide them something of value in return. Like, hey, I've got this thing, and if you were on this, then I could give you that. Or here's a thing that I've just given you, just something that you can have. And if you want to do something really cool, we could work on that together. But figuring out that approach is difficult. And with DJ Command, he doesn't need anything from me. He's got better vocalists. He's good. He can produce circles around me. So it's like, what do I even do? It's like, hi, can I sing on your track? So I just go full fanboy because it just doesn't feel like we're equals. I feel like a kid again. I feel like a fan again. I'm like, it's you.
And what about other independent vocalists from TB albums or Mac Bazooka? I don't know.
Yeah, I could work with Bazooka. I mean, we're both kind of doing the same thing. So it's like, hey, you do really good vocals. I like the way that I produce. If you're down, I can do it. In the case of working with a vocalist like Bazooka, it's less Anthony. It's less that I don't want to work with them or something so much that I don't really have something that I haven't really taken the time to put together a song that's like, oh man, this, I want Anthony on this specifically, exclusively. I would need to think about, okay, this song needs another male vocalist. This song needs his touch. And I wouldn't be against it. I just need to make something that's like, all right, let's get you in on this. Let's do this. Let's make this good. Or maybe he would want to produce it. That right there, like him wanting to produce it, not that I dislike his production at all. I like what I do. I could be a vocalist on his track or something. That would be great and fine. But if it's something that I wrote, I would want to produce it. So maybe that's just like one little hang up with working with independent stuff. I like the way that I do my stuff. And he probably likes the way that he does his stuff. That's fair. I just lone wolf too much, I think, is the problem.
Do you have any hobby? What do you do in your free time?
What free time?
Well,
No.
Now we are talking, and that's your free time, I think. No,
that's true. Honestly, I produce a good chunk of my free time. A few friends of mine have been getting me into League of Legends. I'm terrible, but I'm learning more than just misfortune. Let's see, what else do I do? I stream, actually. I mean, that's more production, but I stream on Twitch. I'll usually work on music, but I'll also occasionally play a game or something, or just chat with people. Hobbies. I mean, I edit videos, I guess. I don't know, I haven't really had a lot of hobbies. I guess playing instruments, and I used to play a lot more arcade games back in the day, and every once in a while I'll still go out and do that. Gosh, I don't really have a lot of hobbies outside of music. Is kind of pretty encompassing of most of what I do.
What are the closest events on which you will perform?
Not a lot of them are set in stone right now. There's a lot that I'm in negotiations with, but I actually can't disclose which ones those are until I've been given the go-ahead. So wait until 2018 starts, and that's when I'll have some announcements in that regard. They are happening. They are coming. I just can't say which ones they are yet.
Do you have a favorite Eurobeat singer or writer? When you write any of your songs, maybe you compare your work with his work?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Favorite Eurobeat excuse me. Favorite Eurobeat singer, I would say Kimmy. Not that I compare my voice to hers, that obviously, but I really like her tone, her style, the way that she does the notes. It's just very pleasing to. Yeah, I can listen. Writers, boy, that is a good question. I guess Foglia, Leonard G. Foglia, the writer for Brett Sinclair, just really has like. I think every word that comes out of that man's mouth is Eurobeat, just in terms of like it's Eurobeat or Eurobeat appropriate. Not like he only says the word Eurobeat, but like his Facebook posts, his lyrics in general, they're just perfectly honed and crafted for just Eurobeat purity. Like if I ever wanted to make another song like Wings of Burning Love, like another thing was just kind of pure Eurobeat lyric goodness, like he would be the one that I would turn to for like, how do I do that? Writers, though, boy, that's a. I will say that in terms of production, I really like Cipro and Sandrini, who were with Delta for a little while, and then I think they moved to Dima for a little while, but then stopped. I also like Morris Capaldi and David DiMarcantonio's production style. Ooh, Dima, David DiMarcantonio as a vocalist, also quite good. I mean, also Dave Rogers, just because he's so darn classic. You can't mistake Dave Rogers for anyone.
How much time do you need to make a song? In general.
Ooh. Boy, that's a good question in that I don't have a very good answer. I've taken as short as a week. In fact, the EP that I put out, every track that I published, only I gave myself just the week, start to finish. Songs have taken as long as a year. I'd say it takes about a month or two for me to really get through a song from concept to release. If I'm not on myself about it, I can finish a song in about a week if I have everything down. Like, all right, gonna do vocals, gonna do lyrics, gonna do vocals, gonna compose on these days and produce on this day and have it out there, finish the album art, just done. But if I have a couple of projects up in the air, kind of like I have today, it could take a month or two. I mean, just before we started this interview, I actually finished the background vocal for a song that I need to submit. I won't say where, but just finished that. And then that leaves one more that just needs lyrics and vocals done. And that has taken about 2 months. So a month or two seems to be about the figure.
I thought it was the end of this summer, and you released the song Eye to Eye. And I think that you were making it for a long time, because in August, I remember that night, because it was 6 a.m. or something like that, and I saw that you were streaming, and you made something on the stream. Well, I don't remember exactly what did you do there, but I think you were making it this song for a long time. No?
Yeah, Eye to Eye was one that I had to come back to. Other projects got in the way, or other songs got in the way. I make it sound so bad. Like I had to take on some other projects that had more urgency. I had to do a little bit more with some other tracks. But yeah, Eye to Eye was another one that I had to come back to later. In the same way that I did with Gone. It was like, okay, other songs need my urgent attention. I'm going to focus on those and come back to this. And that process can take about a month. So Eye to Eye took what? I released that in November? Did you say October? November? It took a few months. More than one, possibly more than two. But that makes sense. I had enough going on to where I really needed to make sure that worked.
How do you make your songs? Are there any ideas for arrangements? And can you describe the process?
Absolutely. Depends on what I have first. Usually at my best, I'll start with either a riff or a lyric concept. Most of the time I start with a riff idea. And I'll start with just the brass riff, and then I'll add, the bass, which is pretty simple. I'll add the stabs, I'll add the drums. Kind of, once I have the concept, I'll build sort of the Eurobeat structure and the formula around it. If I start with a lyrical concept or like a chorus concept, I'll start with that and then try to create a riff that's interesting around that. But once I have that idea down, I start building, okay, I have this chunk. What about the chunk right before it? What about right after? If I have the riff first, then I can usually build the intro just based on that, because it can build with interesting elements until it comes in fully with that brass riff. And then, what could I do with the chorus to make it interesting? And then if I don't have an idea for the chorus, that can take a little while. But Eye to Eye was interesting in that key is very different from the riff. And that took me a little while to really actually no. That part took shorter because I had the idea for that kind of jump ahead of time. If I didn't, then that would have taken a little longer. Trying to regain my train of thought here. So usually I start building out from there. I have the riff, I have the intro. Okay, what does the verse sound like? And then the pre-chorus, and then the chorus, and then I can just take the riff again. The Eurobeat structure is as follows: intro, riff, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, riff, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, riff. And then from there, it's kind of all good. You gotta do an outro, or you can do verse 1 reprise or guitar solo. A lot of my tracks on Toho Eurobeat kind of formulaic in that sense. That's the structure, and then the arrangement is usually pretty straightforward. As long as you have some kind of riff, the FM bass, stabs, a lot of people stabs, drum machines, and then maybe some pads to fill it out. That's really enough for like a bare bones Eurobeat track. Anything else from there is that much gravy. Little arpeggios floating around. That's where you start getting into what makes a song your own or unique, as opposed to just another by the numbers Eurobeat. I think I'm not sure how well I answered that question. Is that about what was being asked, or did I kind of leave something out?
Is there any chance for a simple random guy to get into the Eurobeat culture? Okay.
Absolutely. Of course. Shoot. There's forums. There's old places. If they're talking about just enjoying Eurobeat, then sure, just do research, ask questions, go places where they talk about Eurobeat. Eurobeat Prime forums. That's a start. Even Initial D World. They're a little. I've had my clashes with Initial D World, but frankly, I've had more clashes with people on Eurobeat Prime. So go and find where Eurobeat discussions are taking place, and figure out which places. I can see this way, or I can work with this, or this community is really good. Find your niche, and sure, Eurobeat culture is not really set in stone, so find where you're happy, go nuts. Talking about making Eurobeat, there are resources out there. DJ Command has packs, Equinox Eurobeat has packs.
And you have a pack too, yes?
Yeah, I have a $10 pack, and I think I released like a brass riff in Massive and Serum for free. Excuse me. But there are resources out there. Just hunt for it and find it, and you'll be set. It's not as hard to find a Eurobeat community.
And I think that's the last one. Okay. What do you think about Russia? Do you know any of your friends or partners from Russia, or we are the first?
I've had an interview with fans in Russia before. Not very often.
MLP community, yes?
Yeah, I was. But I sadly don't know very much about Russia. I mean, there's the occasional meme and the occasional this and that, but in terms of Russia for what it actually is, I'm sadly ill-informed. Love to visit, love to see, love to meet people, but I don't really know much about it, and I'd be willing to change that. I would be willing. I'm ready to learn.
Well, you see, there is an Ushanka on me, and Matryoshka.
Yep.
but
So I should have brought like a burger and like a beer
yeah,
and like an eagle on my shoulder.
you understand me.
Yeah. Culture exchange.
Well, I think that we haven't forgotten anything, and I think that's all. And now I want to say a few words, but this is my own feelings about you, about your works, and excuse excuse me for that, but I will read the text that I have written because of some language barriers and other things. So.
Okay.
Of course, I first heard your songs in Initial D. These songs were exciting and amazing. I felt something inside my head. Little by little, I began to learn some information about you. Your songs, Faithful Heart, Leave Me in the Dark, and Savior of the Sky, they supported me once and helped me to make the right choices in some things. Many people in the CIS love what you do. Someone came to listen to Eurobeat because of you, and your songs really can heal the soul. Thank you for your art, and thank you very much.
Thank you. That actually means a lot to hear that, man.
And if you have anything to say, you can make it.
Wait, was that just for this in particular, or just in terms of like going forward?
As you wish.
Gosh.
It's maybe some words to our subscribers when we
Yes.
publish in our Russian Talking Eurobeat blog, and you can say some words to our subscribers, for example. I don't know, as you wish.
Certainly. Thank you so much for having me and for listening in. It's hard to go and to remember sometimes that this has been anything other than just me in my studio apartment, cracking out a song or two in Logic from time to time. So to know that people, even outside of just where I live, even just outside of California, care about what I do actually means a lot too. So or even just the fact that it means something to people more than just, oh, hey, this made my day a little better, but like for people to go out and say, hey, this got me through this, that's actually that gives me a lot of life. That gives me a lot of hope and drives. I've been really blessed and encouraged with a lot of that. Actually, just whenever it's happened, it makes my week, at least, if not my month. Just wow, this matters. Like this is something that I want to keep doing, and for people to be listening in and to allow me to keep doing that is an even bigger blessing. 2018 is going to be a fantastic year. I've got incredible stuff. I've done some non-Eurobeat work, and I'm spreading my wings, but rest assured, Eurobeat, I'm still going to be doing Eurobeat as long as I draw breath. Please continue to look forward to what I do and ask questions, wherever you see me, and drive safe.
Thank you very much. Sorry for some problems, some, I don't know.
Technical difficulties?
Yes.
I blame Discord.
Good luck and goodbye.
Thank you. Good luck and goodbye to you as well.
Thanks.